The big realization in life. The realization didn't strike you like lightning. It gathered. Then one day, you heard yourself say your usual mantra, "I'm still trying to figuring it out," or before. "Once I get my footing," and you finally registered the quiet fiction you'd been telling yourself. It wasn't a lie, not really, you believed it. You were operating on the idea that you were in a temporary state, that your real life would begin as soon as you upgraded into a more decisive person, a more disciplined you. Someone who didn't keep deferring their potential, like putting off that household chore you know needs doing. You were waiting for a threshold to cross, a clear border between the person you were and the person you were supposed to be. The self who would want the right things with conviction, who would no longer confuse restlessness for direction, and who would finally feel like someone who belonged in their own skin. That version of you never materialized. There was no announcement. You simply noticed one day, during a walk on the beach, that the sense of waiting had fallen silent. It hadn't happened, nor had it found resolution. It had merely departed, left, as if it had gathered its things and slipped away without a word. And yet you remained, still paying the same monthly fees, still preparing the same meals for one, still drafting sentences in your mind that you would never give voice to, because the silence you had built your life upon was no longer accepting inquiries or whys and wherefores. It could not be classified as a total disaster, a fact that made it all the more difficult to articulate. There is no grand theater in a person outliving their own delusion. You receive no accolade for realizing a fantasy has reached its terminus. You are simply left to tidy the pantry. You had told yourself you were waiting, as if the waiting itself were not the very substance of the life you were living. But what if this is it? You thought the waiting was just preparation, a provisional state, a necessary interlude. It became a way to rationalize the life you're living now, the accumulating decisions not made. You operated on the assumption that a moment of clarity would arrive, when the outline of the life you had been rehearsing would cleanly distinguish itself from the one you had been living by default. It never did. You had perpetually scheduled that other self, the one who would arrive on time, equipped with answers and conviction, for a later date. That self had plans. They had a goal. They possessed instincts far superior to your own. But that is not the self who lived through any of it. It was you who lived it. You who navigated the messages left unsent and the decisions made. You who performed the tasks you said you would complete once you felt more like yourself and tended to the relationships you did not sustain. It was you who postponed choices, waiting to make them from a place of a better, more resolute version. A self unburdened by doubt, unimpeded by circumstance. A self who never was. You were just fooling yourself. The days you wrote off planning for this imaginary future. You're the only one who was here. The version of you who was going to make sense of all this, they didn't come. And now it's too late to pretend they might. If this is it, not the ending, not the future you really wanted. So what if this is the place God has appointed for you? The question no longer stirs a tremor within. You simply rest it beside you, as one might set down a cup, trusting that if it is needed, it will be provided. You are still here, abiding not in a question, but within the unfolding of a providence you are learning to trust. And this, for now, must be your portion. To be present in the life you have been given is an act of faith. It is the yes whispered in the face of the not yet. And on some days, by His grace, that trust feels almost like a settled peace.